Velkommen alle sammen, filming this video from Norway. I don't know if I'll be able to release this because I'll be traveling at the time where the new Viking season started, so I'm just filming it now while I'm still back home and then back to the US. Now the new Viking season is about to come out, and I would like to thank you all for clicking on this video. Just by doing that shows that you are interested in the real history and what really happened. So it's not out yet, I haven't seen the new season, but already I know how much historical inaccuracies are going to be in there, just based on the last seasons of Vikings, and unfortunately it's borderline slander on our ancestors what they are doing. I know it's just TV and it's not supposed to be 100% true, you probably all know that, but there is really going to be a few thousand people watching this video and a few thousand more people who actually know the history and are interested in learning, but unfortunately there's going to be millions and millions of people who are going to think this is all accurate history, and that's the problem. So really, I thank you all for watching this video and wanting to learn more. But first, if you want to know the full history in detail, you can get 4 books, and that is going to be Ulla Trigwason's saga, Olav the Saint's saga, Magnus the Good saga, and the saga of Harald Hardrada. Those are basically the 4 books that this season is going to be based on, and they have the most detailed description of the historical events of the time, and this is all fortunately in one book called Heimskringla, a very old book written not that long after the Viking Age, and pretty much the #1 source on the Viking Age as a whole. So I carry this book in my online shop if you're interested, always the lowest prices on books there. Now into the history, there may be some spoilers here, I have to admit. I don't expect the series is going to stay super close to the actual history, but I'm just warning because there might be some possible spoiler alerts here. So we are looking at the years from about the late 900s up until the end of the Viking Age, towards the end of the 1000s. That's what the trailers have shown so far, and the little descriptions that I've actually read of the coming season. And this was the time where the Viking Age was coming to an end. The way of life in Scandinavia was changing, and it wasn't going to be the same ever again. Before this, we were independent tribes and kingdoms, but now, at this time, it was switching to whole countries starting to become unified under a central rule or king. It was also the time where Christianity was being forced upon Scandinavia, so this was a very exciting time in history with lots of changes, lots of wars, conflict, and drama, and it's going to make for a good season. So we can start it with the time of Huddled Bluetooth, who Bluetooth technology is named after, as most of you know, who was a Danish king who cowardly submitted to foreign rule and basically forced this foreign ideology on all of Scandinavia. And Scandinavians did not like that very much, so they willingly chose Svein Forkbeard, Harald Bluetooth's son, to take control of Denmark, and they get the people their freedom back, basically. This is actually the first king that is said to be in the TV show that I've read about it. Now, our greatest hero of the Viking Age, in my opinion, was also around at this time, and that was the Norwegian chieftain Håkon the Jarl. Håkon was friends with Harald Bluetooth until all of this happened, and then basically he took control of Norway and slandered Harald Bluetooth as much as he could all along the way, and he had an epic reign over Norway. He was just a chieftain, but he definitely ruled over it like a king, very respected by the whole country, a great warrior that defended every foreign attack, but he had a bad reputation though for sleeping with all the chieftain's daughters. So the country got pissed off at him, and they forgot all of the great things that he did. This leads us to the foreign-born Norwegian Ulla Trigwason, who was also in the show, and he pretty much used lies and trickery and bribes and treachery to gain the support of the Norwegians and the throne of Norway. He became king, and he ended up getting Håkon the Jarl killed because people were just pissed off at him for banging all their daughters. So Ulla Trigwason took the throne, became king, and he ruled for a few, not long, but very long years, basically torturing and killing anyone who didn't submit to his rule and convert to Christianity. Eventually, Olaf pissed everyone off too, and they led a great army against him from all over Scandinavia, and they slaughtered him at the Battle of Svolder. That was one of my favorite battles of all time. Olaf now was killed, and he was a horrible man, and Scandinavia was much better after his time, but I do have to admit, some people like him. He was very smart and a great warrior, and he was brave until his last breath. Also, at the same time as all this, there was a significant settlement of North America, starting with Eric the Red and Leif Erikson. These two are also in the show, I think. And now we have known this for 1,000 years from the written sources, but we didn't really know for sure. They were kind of just unreliable old written sources, but we've pretty much in just recent years discovered settlements. And now, I think just a few months ago, actually, they have dated these settlements in Canada to be from the Viking Age with radiocarbon dating. So we know this for sure now. They did settle North America many hundreds of years before Columbus. Now, their interactions with the Native Americans there, some of it was peaceful, some of it was not peaceful, but, you know, it's not as simple as most people think. I would definitely recommend people reading those sagas before they make any assumptions. Also, shortly after this time, we're talking right after the year 1000, the Danish king Svein Forkbeard won control of all England. It did not last that long, though. We think he was assassinated actually just a few months into his official rule, but his son, Knut the Great, shortly after won back control of all England, and he ruled over Norway, Denmark, and many other places, and he really was a great king that ensured peace and order for the most part. Also, a significant ruler of the time was the Norwegian king Olav Haraldsson, or Olav the Saint. He was also kind of like the previous Olav, and he used violence and torture to kill anyone who wanted religious freedom and remain pagan. He also became quite good friends with some of the English kings and leaders, and he helped them defend against the Danes a lot of the time. He was actually an enemy with the Danish king Knut the Great, and this you're also going to see a lot of in the show. So Olav's rule lasted for about 15 years, but he was eventually killed too by the Norwegian rebels with the help of the Danish king Knut the Great, and this was at the Battle of Stiklestad, another great battle. So we're coming to the end here, just another minute. After all this happened, a son of Olav called Magnus the Good became king of all Norway, and Magnus was just a kid actually, and he ruled for a relatively peaceful few years, and then enters finally the famous Hardrada, who is probably going to show up in the TV show too, and he was raised in the east of Europe actually with the Rus Vikings in Russia-Ukraine area, and he even served in Constantinople as the leader of the guard of the Eastern Roman Emperor. He eventually made his way back to Norway and took rule back from the young Magnus the Good, and after that, the times were relatively peaceful until there was a big mess happening in all England. Basically, an English king named Edward died, and he left the rule to Harald Godwinson, the great king there. The problem was some of the nobles and leaders in England close to the king had promised rule to others before he died. So Harald Hardrada of Norway thought he had the right to rule England. William the Conqueror of Normandy thought he had the right to rule England. He was actually a descendant of Rollo, by the way. And also the Danish king, I forget his name, thought he had the right to rule England, and some treacherous English noblemen at the time. They were all about to come and try and gain the control of England from Harald Godwinson. So the English king Harald was pretty fucked. He was about to be invaded by all Northern Europe at this time. Harald Hardrada was the first one to invade, and it was a few hard battles. They did well, but it ended with the Battle of Stamford Bridge, and this marks the end of the Viking Age because Harald Hardrada and the Norwegians lost that battle because they were taken by surprise, and after that the English king basically made the surviving Norwegians swear an oath that they would no longer raid or attack England, and they actually kept their word for the most part. So that is kind of the general consensus as to when the Viking Age ended, because it's when the raids ended. Unfortunately for the English, just after the king Harald Godwinson beat the Norwegians. The Normans were about to invade just a few days later, and the Normans were the ones in France, but they were basically descended from Danish Vikings. So them and their leader, William the Conqueror, slaughtered the English and won control, and the rest is history. And that's probably where the series of Vikings is going to end, but it may take a few seasons until that happens, because there really is a lot of history there. They could go really deep into it if they want. So that's the general history, but as I said, you can read all about it in great detail in this book, Heimskringla. But thank you for watching. You have all my respect that you stayed until the end and you actually care about our real history. This is just the general story that I said here, and that's all well and good, but I want everyone to know that there is so much more valuable information that we can learn about the spirituality, the culture, the attitude towards women, you know, warriors, family, loyalty, emotions, and general behaviors and cultures that unfortunately the TV show is going to mess completely up and give the complete wrong impression of what the Norse culture at the time was like. Now, this is the most important part of history, and actually what bothers me the most. It's not that the show gets the general history or the storyline or the outfits or weapons or armor a bit off. I don't give a shit about any of that. What bothers me the most is that they portray the Norse as barbaric, cruel, degenerate, treacherous, emotional crybabies, really a bunch of pussy with no regard for honor or traditional human values. So I hope most of you by now know that that is in fact the opposite of what the Norse culture was actually like at the time. And just read the history and you will see, but that's all I have to say for today. Vi ses nästa gång.